Your Archbishop is deadly serious about this business. And I will do everything in my power to protect children and young people and hold accountable those who would dare harm the innocent. Yes, I'm disappointed. I'm disgusted over some of the things that I've learned. But it is not going to keep me from Jesus Christ. And it is not going to keep me from the church that I love and that I am called to serve with all my heart, with all my life. I'm not going to let this keep me from the Eucharist. This evening now in your hands, Father, knowing you will lead it and guide it according to your good purpose. We're talking about a very difficult subject tonight. Quite honestly, I wish I could be in front of you young people talking about something different. I worry about what this does to you, to your faith, to your relationship with the church. And in the year 2002, what came to light was the widespread nature, much more widespread than anyone had ever thought, of the sexual abuse of minors by priests. Priests who had abused children had been moved to other assignments and had continued to do damage. And this is a horrible scandal, and it's a horrible thing. It isn't just a scandal, it's a horrible thing. It's horrible for me to think about that. Sadly, I have met with more victims over the last 16 years than I would have ever dreamed of or liked. But it's been a very powerful experience to sit face to face with someone who's been abused, to hear their story. They must always be kept first and foremost in our minds, in our hearts, our support, our love, and our prayers. It isn't because there has been a whole new wave of the abuse of minors and children by priests since 2002. So there's an impression that, well, the church hasn't learned anything. And the abuse is still going on. That's not true. What came out in the grand jury report is still historical cases of abuse. They're not new instances of abuse that have happened in recent times, especially in the last 16 years since the charter. These cases of abuse, my dear young people, are really mainly historical. They peaked in the 1970s. The instances themselves, the incidents. And they have tapered off dramatically. It's still sickening. It's still evil. And sin and crime. The only thing that we apparently, or at least some didn't learn, is the importance of being transparent and open about the past and the history. But what came to light when he was accused is that all sorts of people knew about other immoral behavior on his part. Not with minors, but with other adults, particularly seminarians and young priests from even his days as a bishop. And this is the one that has rocked the church. It's rocked me. Many of us, and I include myself in that, want to know how this happened. And the Vatican is investigating that, and we have to, I guess, leave it in their hands. Some of us in the Bishops' Conference, when we met November 1, and a more public investigation. Pressure's on the bishops now, because the spotlight's on us. How are we going to deal with this? How are we going to hold ourselves accountable, not just for not abusing people, but that we're not going to cover this stuff up, that we're not going to be secretive about it, that we're going to be transparent. There's a lot of people out there who think they have the right answers to why this abuse crisis happened. And everybody's got their scapegoat for it. But I think it's a very deep and a very complex rationale for why this happens. The way this is portrayed in the media is the priests are just a bunch of perverts. The vast majority of your priests are good, solid men. Sexual abuse of minors among the clergy is no higher than it is in the general population of males. It's not like the priesthood is sort of filled with people who have this tendency versus the rest of the population, for somehow the priesthood has become a collecting pot for these disordered individuals. But I don't take a whole lot of consolation in that, because I think the people of God expect more from their priests. It's disappointing, it's disgusting that a man who dedicates his life to Christ is capable of engaging in activity, behavior that harms children and young people. We had men who probably were not well screened. The formation itself wasn't probably very good. You got the sexual revolution. It was a breakdown in moral authority, in moral virtue, in right and wrong. In many ways, the way it was dealt with in the church is the way it was dealt with in society in general and in families. But it was just not talked about. We covered it up. We kind of had a perfect storm for what happened. We put these men through very careful screening and extensive psychological testing, much more so than was ever done before. I have, in my time as a bishop, rejected candidates for the seminary before we never let them even enter the seminary. I have dismissed seminarians from the seminary for behavior that raised the red flag in my mind. The review board is an invaluable instrument for me as a bishop to help assess. You know, you just need a group of people to bounce this off of, to go through the whole case with them. The flaw is that the review board only reviews the cases that the bishop brings. Now the bishops are talking about this independent body of lay people, that when an allegation comes forward, especially through this third-party reporting system, that not only is a bishop informed, but the chair of the review board, him or herself, is informed. I'm firmly of the mind that the laity need to have an ever greater role in helping the church monitor this very important area. The allegation involves sexual abuse against a minor. The first thing we do is report it to law enforcement officials. So at some point, the church has to conduct its own canonical investigation according to its own law. But then once that's all collected, that's brought to the review board. And the review board makes a recommendation to the bishop of the veracity. Is this true or not? Or does it have the semblance of truth? Does it seem credible, believable? And if it does, the bishop is obligated, according to church law, to send the case to Rome. For one instance of sexual abuse of a minor by a priest that's been substantiated, he is permanently removed from ministry. Our faith is in Jesus Christ. And our faith is in the church that He established. He promised the apostles many times the gift of the Holy Spirit to guide us, lead us into all truth. That's the church that we have our faith and trust in. We don't place our faith and trust in the individual shepherds who happen to be taking care of a portion of the church. So my dear young people, please don't lose heart. Don't be discouraged. Have faith. Christ is with us. We'll get through this. And we will be a stronger, holier, healthier church for it. Because this is a time when God is calling forth saints from among His people. During times of crisis, the church has always had renewal. And it's come through men and women who have, with zeal, dedicated themselves all the more fervently to the church, to Christ, to serve her